Good morning, New Garden friends. It's good to be with you today. I remember my times being with you in the past and what a joy that was. So it's wonderful to join you again and to have Margaret be at Fairfield meeting this morning. It's been a wet, cold spring in Indiana, but now summer is on the horizon. If we look closely, we can just see her topsails, and we know she'll be steaming into port any moment now. Uh, the seas have been rough. 104,000 COVID-19 deaths in the USA so far. Unmerited violence against people of color perpetrated by those whose task is to protect and serve. A president who cares only for his wealth and status and has surrounded himself with people bent and misshapen by greed, corruption, xenophobia, and warped theology. What do you have to say about this? Someone wrote me this week telling me I should not speak about political matters, that as a pastor I needed to avoid this. Every pastor gets letters and phone calls and emails saying the same thing. But how can anyone with a conscience be silent? If we don't speak, this allows the least morally evolved among us to carry the day. And when they speak, their goal is always to silence, is always to press their knee of power upon the neck of the powerless until life is gone. Their goal is always to maintain their privilege no matter what. I am tired of this winter of injustice. I'm impatient for the summer of righteousness. Most of us, since we were little kids, have been steeped in the virtue of patience, that good things come to those who wait, that blessing comes in due time in the right season. I learned those lessons from my mother, who was a school teacher, to be patient, to wait, to believe in progress. Patience is an interesting thing. When you teach children, as my mother did, you have to be patient. You have to believe your efforts to educate and civilize the human race will one day bear fruit. Otherwise, you would grow discouraged and give up. When you're a teacher, it is only your patience, your faith in moral evolution, your willingness to wait for good that keeps you going. Likewise, those of us who are spiritually inclined want to believe in the ultimate triumph of good, especially when the wine has grown bitter and the bread stale. We need to believe a banquet is ahead, that justice is right around the corner, that the right people will lead us. When we no longer believe in the inevitability of good, we lose heart and eventually lose faith. Patience. Patience is an integral part of spiritual maturity. Sometimes, though, we expect people to be patient when they have every right to be impatient. When you're a white person living in America and you're well off and male, things have gone your way for so long, you grow impatient when they don't. I'm speaking out of my own experience now. I've grown so accustomed to the world bending my way that when it doesn't, when I have to wait for something, I grow upset and impatient. Money, position, and power by immediacy and expediency. People like me don't have to wait for justice, don't have to wait for equality, don't have to wait for freedom. My spring has always come early, has always been more lush and verdant, even as ice and sleet still battered the left out and left behind. This never occurred to me until I read Martin Luther King's letter from the Birmingham jail, when 8 pastors of Birmingham's largest churches took it upon themselves to write a public letter to Martin Luther King while he was jailed, urging him to be patient, to wait. King responded by writing of his distaste with the word wait. He said, "For years now I have heard the word wait. It rings in the ear of every Negro with piercing familiarity. This wait has almost always meant never." The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, Jesus said, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. The Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. Let's think about that. What is good news to the poor? When you are poor and powerless, all you hear over and over is to be patient, to wait. You are told your day will one day come. We have too long promised the poor and the powerless eventual blessing. It is always the poor, the beleaguered, the beat down, who are asked to be patient. We even do this in our churches, pointing out how in this world there will be struggles, but that heaven awaits them. When with wealth and privilege comes impatience, comes an unwillingness to wait, comes the insistence on blessing and privilege now. I saw a video clip this week of a white man pulled over by a police officer for speeding, and the first words out of his mouth to the police officer were, "You obviously don't know who I am." Can you imagine a poor black woman making minimum wage saying that to a police officer? Can you imagine George Floyd saying that? "Do you know who I am?" What a luxury to say that. The measure of a nation is what makes it impatient, what makes it angry. No nation that patiently abides the maltreatment of the poor and powerless can claim to be a moral nation. No nation that hurries to protect and appease the rich and powerful, but turns a deaf ear toward the worn down and weary, can call itself a moral nation. Pay close attention when you start urging someone else to be patient. Pay close attention when you hear those words coming from your mouth. Just be patient. Just wait. Make sure you're not asking them to let an injustice persist, especially if they are the ones paying the price for that injustice. I love my mother. When she said patience was a virtue, that was true. But we must also remember that impatience, too, is a virtue, and that one indication of our personal and national character is what we are willing to patiently endure and what we are not. Friends, this week I pray you are impatient for justice. For when enough of us grow impatient for justice, it will roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. This is the promise of Amos, the great prophet. Friends, this week I pray you are impatient for all the right things, for justice and for mercy and for peace and for understanding. Thank you for gathering this week. God be with you. Love your neighbor. Take good care of yourselves and those you love, and especially those whom you find difficult to love. God bless.